We can hear the crunchy
Okay,
snow.
I appreciate your commitment to getting outside.
There we go. Okay, we can still hear each other.
Yeah.
All right. How come it's showing you in the... Hi everyone, welcome to Bike Winnipeg's first YouTube live event. Today we're talking about winter cycling with some very special guests. Before we get started, I'm just going to ask Julia Schroeder, our Bike Winnipeg board member, to read our land acknowledgement.
Thanks, Patty. Bike Winnipeg has the privilege of riding on the roads and pathways of Treaty Number 1 territory along the Red, Assiniboine, Seine, and LaSalle rivers. Our work takes place on the original lands and waters of the Anishinaabe, Aninawak, Nehetawa, Anishinaabe, Dakota Oyote, and Dene Sulene peoples, as well as on the homeland of the Red River Métis Nation. We recognize our part in the treaty relationship and are committed to working toward mobility and environmental justice for all on land transformed by colonialism. We commit to collaborating with Indigenous communities in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. As we gather in Treaty 1 territory, it is important to recognize and honor Treaty 3, in particular Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Iskate Wazagigan Number 39 Independent First Nation, the source of Winnipeg's clean drinking water. It is also important to recognize and honor the First Nations of Treaties 1, 3, and 5, the land where Winnipeg sources its hydroelectric power.
Thank you, Julia. I'd also like to acknowledge our sponsors, and they are our very own local bike shops, Bikes and Beyond, and Plain Bicycle. I was excited when they both said yes because they're instrumental in promoting winter cycling here in Winnipeg. I'll be talking more about them later, but please check the link in the description and tell them Bike Winnipeg sent you. I'm the newsletter editor for Bike Winnipeg, and this is only my second winter riding my bike. Inevitably, whenever I tell someone about it, they call me one of those extreme cyclists. But the reality is that winter cycling is becoming more and more popular in our city and in our country as people look for a less expensive alternative to commute to work while also making better decisions for the environment. For some of you, this has been your way of life for years. And for many of you, this is something you probably think is unattainable. Our motto at Bike Winnipeg is more people biking more often. And in that spirit, we wanted to bring you some very cool winter bike people. We have Pekka Tahkola joining us from Finland, Tom Babin from Calgary, Jasmine and Patrick from Montreal, Julia Schroeder, and Meryl Grant from Winnipeg. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending on where you're watching from. Wherever you are, you can type any question in the chat, and our moderators will post them on screen when we get to the Q&A portion of our live stream. Thank you to Ian McCausland and Andrew Single for helping with all the technical stuff. I'm going to do a quick round of introductions, and as I introduce each one of you, I'll ask you that you answer some quick questions, and you can indicate your pronouns as well, and our viewers can see where you are in your winter cycling journey. We're going to start with our guest from Finland, Pekka Tahkola. And he lives in Oulu, Finland, is a cycling coordinator, urban planner, and well-being engineer who hopes to spread the word about what is possible. It's not about the cold, it's about the infrastructure and maintenance. This is so true, Pekka. This may be a silly question for you, but can you tell us how long you've been winter cycling?
Well, I don't like to talk winter cycling or like winter anything words because nobody talks about winter walking or winter driving or winter flying or whatever. So for me, it's just cycling, which just happens in all possible seasons. And well, it's never even occurred to me that one would not cycle in winter. It's one of the seasons, and you just, well, dress appropriately, and that's it.
Awesome. How long do you go riding in an average day, or how long is your daily commute?
So as I mostly work from home or wherever I need to, or where I want to, my average commute, well, if I would go to my office, it would be just 2K, which is nothing. So it would be so boring. And I oftentimes don't even go there. I do like to cycle myself quite a lot. And for example, last year I cycled about 20,000 kilometers, but that has nothing to do with cycling being a utilitarian mode of transportation. But yeah, well, there we go. Hope that answers at least some of your questions.
What's the temperature there right now, Pekka?
It's minus 16 or minus 17 now.
Okay, awesome. And did you, like, one of the questions that I'll be asking everyone is, what was the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome? Although I feel like you don't really see any obstacles.
Well, I don't, that's true. But when I started my university studies in another city in southern Finland, and I moved there from Oulu to study, it really opened my eyes to see that not every city, not even within Finland, is as good as Oulu. So it wasn't as easy there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, we'll move over to Tom Babin from Calgary.
Welcome.
I'm so glad you could join us. Tom, your YouTube channel Shifter was instrumental in helping me get over my fear of riding my bike in winter. And I'm really enjoying your book, Frostbike, The Joy, Pain, and Numbness of Winter Cycling. I'm not done yet, but I'm working on it. Yeah, there's many times when I find myself tearing up about all the stories that you're sharing, and I really appreciate it. You've delivered speeches about cycling around the world, and you're often in the media addressing issues related to cycling. For several years, you also wrote the pedal blog for the Calgary Herald. Tom, if you could tell us a little bit about how long you've been winter cycling and what was the catalyst that got you started.
Well, thank you for the best intro ever, Patty. That was great. That made me feel great. So I started bike commuting, I guess probably more than 20 years ago, just because I got tired of sitting in my crappy minivan in traffic. And I just loved every second of it. And then when winter came around, I just was really reluctant to put my bike away because I loved it and just tried to keep it going. And one of the reasons I wrote Frostbike is because I was looking for resources to help me. And I felt like there wasn't a lot available at the time. So I thought, well, let's document my journey. And the fundamental question was, is riding your bike through a Canadian winter for transportation a viable thing to do, or is it just for crazy people? And the spoiler alert is like, here I am, 15, 20 years later, still riding through winter and riding some of those commutes home in the snow are some of my favorite rides these days. So it's absolutely viable, and we're seeing more and more people doing it all the time.
So you said 15 to 20 years, right? And do you still commute by bike?
Yeah, I would think that.
Are you
Sorry,
still
what was the
commuting?
question?
Are you still commuting by bike? And if so, like how long is your daily commute?
Yeah, I have a commute of about 10 kilometers each way. And yeah, I commute not in the office full time anymore, but 2 or 3 times a week. And I ride my bike pretty much every day. I go into the office, and I also use it, getting around, just running errands. Yeah, a good bike friendly city, I think, is about more than only commuting. So it really is a nice viable. I'd like to say I do it full time, but I do live in Calgary here in Canada, which is a pretty car centric city still. So I do still own a car. I don't use it that as much. I use it more than I would like, but I still use it occasionally. But I do use my bike year round, almost at least every week, if not 3 or 4 times a week on my commute, and then more so just to sort of run my everyday errands as well.
That's awesome. What was the biggest challenge you had to overcome when you started? I mean, I know the answer to this because I'm reading your book, but can you share that with us?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that I see in Canadians and for me, I think, was just like getting over my fear of it. I think it was, it's people who ride bikes in winter here are depicted as being sort of crazy zealots or extremists. And so if you start to ride, you're sort of like lumped into that category of like you're an extreme athlete or you're a masochist of some kind. And my first visit to Aulu, when Pekka picked me up at the airport and rode me into the city in the wintertime on great, safe, well-maintained bike infrastructure, I realized that, this isn't an extreme sport. Anybody can do it. And I think just getting people to overcome this fear of winter is really the biggest barrier for most people,
That's
including
awesome.
me.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Next, we have Jasmine and Patrick from Montreal. Jasmine and Patrick run the YouTube channel Oh the Urbanity, where they take a look at urban housing and transportation from a data-driven lens and share their experiences with active and public transportation. Basically, they spend a lot of time walking, biking, looking at maps, and filming. Welcome to you both. We love your channel here too. And I'd love it if you could share your winter cycling journey with us. One at a time, starting with how long you've been doing it and what your catalyst was for getting started. Maybe we'll start with Patrick. Patrick, do you?
Yeah, so we are
Yeah.
both more recent. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, both of us, we're more recent into winter cycling than some of the other people on the panel. It was really moving to Montreal in 2019 and just seeing that winter cycling was something that people did. Because before that, we were in Toronto for a few years, and I guess like if there's no snow on the ground, you wouldn't think anything of it. But beyond that, it just wasn't something that was really in our consciousness as a thing that people could do. So living here kind of opened our mind to that, just seeing how many people kept biking through winter. So yeah, it was gradual over the winters of being in Montreal. Although we were in Ottawa for a year and a half in the middle, and that was a bit more challenging with they didn't have as much. They didn't do as good of a job clearing the bike routes as Montreal.
Right. And so
Yeah,
how
the
long
biggest
is your
challenge. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
The biggest challenge from my perspective, it would be two things. One is the variable quality of the bike route clearing. So Montreal does a quite good job of clearing the protected bike lanes, but it's the painted lanes that often just turn into snow dumps, basically. And so the options you have for the routes through the city just diminish in the winter, and that can require some planning of routes, and some areas aren't as easy to get to as others. That's
Okay.
the biggest thing, and then bike cleaning and maintenance during the winter through all the snow and slush is a challenge as well.
Yeah, I can see that. I see that myself. Jasmine, do you sort of share all of those things? And how long is your commute? What was your challenge?
Yeah. So a lot of it's quite similar. We kind of, got into winter cycling together, but definitely just moving to Montreal and seeing how many people did cycle through the winter, continued to cycle, even when it started snowing, was a big kind of inspiration. And then it became sort of a challenge, like, oh, well, I guess we should try doing it. And then kind of the more you try it and research and stuff, you realize that there's like better and safer ways to do it. And it becomes kind of a bit of a fun challenge and way to stay outside in the winter through the colder weather in Montreal. I'd say the biggest challenge, I would echo what Tom said, is really like the fear, definitely the fear. Like if you've never done it, you don't exactly know what to expect. You might think it's scarier than it is. So I think, definitely just really simply not having done it was the biggest barrier.
Great. And how long is your commute, Jasmine?
It's about 5 kilometers. So it takes me about probably 25-30 minutes to get down to my office.
Awesome. Thank you so much to both of you. Next up, we have Julia Schroeder. Julia works full-time as a grade 1-2 teacher in Winnipeg. She has been volunteering with Bike Winnipeg since 2017, has been a member of the board since 2019, and has chaired the outreach and education community since 2021. Julia is also the secretary for the Glen Elm Neighborhood Association and member of her neighborhood gardening club. As a queer woman, Julia believes in the importance of building community and creating a just, equitable future for all in the midst of the climate and social crisis we face today. Thank you for joining us, Julia. I'm very lucky that I get to call you my friend and hang out with you on a regular basis and on Bike Winnipeg group rides and on the board. If you could please share your winter cycling journey with us, starting with how long you've been doing it and what your catalyst was for getting started.
We're the ones who are lucky to have you, Patty. Patty does all of our social media and newsletter things, and it has made a world of difference for Bike Winnipeg, her and Ian. I started winter cycling in university. I was working at Mountain Equipment Co-op, and lots of my coworkers there were winter cycling already. It was something I had thought about, but it hadn't been a priority just because at that point I was busing most of the time in the winter. But it definitely, between the Bike Winnipeg folks and the Mountain Equipment Co-op folks, I was convinced. I got a pair of studded tires and I haven't looked back. Most of the time I've been winter cycling, I've had a decent commute length, 5 to 7 kilometers, although there is one winter, I will admit, I didn't bother putting my winter tires on my bike because my commute was about 1.5 kilometers and it was easier to just walk. So
what was the biggest challenge that you had?
When I started, I'm not sure I really even thought that much about the challenges other than just acquiring the right gear. It is a bit of a learning curve in terms of how to ride in the snow, for sure. You don't have the same steering capacity. You got to take your turns slower. I find even with the studded tires, one of the things that's always interesting is that I have better traction on my bike than when I put my feet down at intersections. So adjusting for that as well. These days, the biggest challenge is when there's fresh snow and the roads haven't been cleared yet.
Correct. Julia, and you also take your dog with you everywhere, Willow. She's very, very cute, and she comes on all the group rides with us, and she loves it, and everybody loves to see Willow. So thank you so much. And up next, we have Meryl Grant. Meryl is the program manager at the Wrench Community Bike Shop in Winnipeg. She has been bike commuting for 20 years and winter riding for about 15 of those. She keeps herself busy in winter with curling, snowshoeing, and skating on the river. So, Meryl, you've already indicated in your bio how long you've been winter cycling. Maybe you can share with us what your catalyst was for getting started. And I should point out that this is the first time I'm meeting Meryl as well, and it's really great to meet you.
Hi. Yeah, so I started winter cycling because I was out into my first department, and I was working as a daycare teacher, and I wasn't making a lot of money. And after a while, I realized that I could just ride my bike to work instead of paying, the $80 for a bike pass. I could just keep riding my bike right through the winter. So that was kind of how I got started. And yeah, I've been just doing it since then. I think part of it is just that I like riding my bike a lot, and then the other half is that it's just a great way to save money and also get some exercise and fresh air.
Great. How long is your daily commute right now, Meryl?
Right now, it's a little over 6 kilometers.
Great. And do you remember sort of the biggest challenge you had to overcome when you started as well?
I think the biggest challenge is probably snow clearing. I feel like everything else is I've kind of squared away, and what I use isn't fancy or expensive, or it doesn't cost a lot of money, and it's relatively simple, but it just comes down to that sometimes the streets and lanes and paths just aren't cleared very well, and I feel like that's kind of the only barrier right now that's left for me.
Yeah, I understand. I feel the same way. For me, my commute is about, if I take the short way, the short, more dangerous way, it's about 11.5 kilometers. And if it's cleared, it's great. I can do it, no problem. But if there's been, a fresh snowfall and there's drifts, I find that very frustrating, and it takes me about an hour to get to work if that's the case. Otherwise, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, not too bad. But this is really great. Thank you. I love getting all of the different perspectives, and this is why I wanted you all here. I knew that everyone's story and journey is a little different, and the same will be for our viewers. So next up, we're going to do what we call a lightning round. But before we do that, we'd like to thank our first sponsor. Bikes and Beyond is one of the local shops sponsoring Bike Winnipeg on this video, and also one of our longest supporting shops here at Bike Winnipeg, as they offer an in-store discount for all Bike Winnipeg members. Having a local shop is the single most important winter cycling accessory. So go to Bikes and Beyond for all your winter cycling needs. Visit them at 227 Henderson Highway or online at bikesandbeyond.ca. Now, viewers, you can type in your questions, and you can specify on there who you'd like to answer, or you can just ask and we'll see who'd like to answer. But while you do that, we're going to get Finland to do a little bragging. Pekka, despite the long winters, you guys keep pedaling your way to and from work and school and everywhere. Around 1 in 5 of all trips made in Oulu are by bike. We don't have all the time in the world to talk about perfect winter cycling infrastructure, but can you tell us a little bit of how you make sure to keep people cycling year-round and even on the coldest days?
So yeah, well, thanks for calling us perfect. We are far away from perfect. We could do much better. We could have much better infrastructure. We could still have much better winter maintenance here. But anyway, it's a priority. So first of all, we need to have infrastructure that is winter-proof, so that the infrastructure that you have in the, let's say, dry months is also usable and most of all, maintainable in the winter time. So it's easy and effective to maintain. In our snowy conditions, we need big machinery to be able to move those huge quantities of snow and ice. So our infrastructure must also fit them. And naturally, our priority network, which is not only in the city, but it's regional, has a 24/7 maintenance with really strict limits, really strict quality criteria. That is, if there's 2 centimeters of new snowfall, it needs to be gone within 3 hours, and 4 centimeters must never be reached, even for a second. In addition to that, we measure user satisfaction, customer satisfaction, because winter maintenance is first of all, it's a customer service job, and you need to understand that. And depending on customer satisfaction, how satisfied people who are using our bicycle infrastructure, also those who are walking, based on their satisfaction, the contractors responsible for winter maintenance get either bonuses or sanctions. Also, they themselves, the very tractor drivers who are maintaining the cycle paths, must also cycle on the very same paths that they are maintaining to understand what they are truly doing. Because you need to know your product that you are selling to customers. There's a couple of seconds of bragging for you.
That's great. I also see that your paths are nice and wide, so you don't need special equipment, it looks like.
No, not at all. So, for example, the bike I'm riding here, this one is from 1941. It's a single-speed upright granny bike, and on my feet, if you will, with nothing special on it. So, my winter cycling equipment would be front and rear lights. That's it. Because in the summertime, naturally, in our latitude, you don't need lights at all. So you only need them in the winter.
That's so cool. Look at that, the lit up signs there on the path as well. Thank you so much. Whenever people say Winnipeg just doesn't have the weather for year-round cycling, I always have to say, I guess we're not Oulu. Everyone ready for our first lightning round? Since I still have you, Pekka, I'm going to start with you. What is the coldest day you've ever cycled?
Well, my coldest day was minus 41 Celsius or Fahrenheit. It doesn't really matter because this is the same. I would have cycled in colder, but I haven't been lucky enough to experience that yet. Also, hey, while I have the mic, I'd like to also point out the viewers that it's Sunday night, 10:30 p.m. here in Oulu. So that's why it's so quiet here.
It's beautiful. Looks very peaceful and lit as well. Tom, your coldest day?
Well, I feel like you should never follow Pekka in a discussion about cold or distance traveled on a bike, I think, because he will always win. Maybe my coldest memory is when I snapped the belt drive on my winter bike, which was good down to minus 30. They guaranteed it would be fine to minus 30, and I broke it one day, so it must have been colder than that.
Okay, great. Patrick?
Yeah, we are comparatively wimps. For me, I think it was minus 15. Below that, it's just a little too complicated. But fortunately, lots of days are above that. Most days are above that.
Okay, great. Jasmine?
Yeah, mine would have been the same. I would have been biking right behind or in front of him. So
okay, great. Julia?
Well, how cold did it get here last winter? Because that cold, I don't know, minus 40-ish. The
Did
cold
it
doesn't
actually
really
get
stop me
that
from
cold?
riding.
No? Okay. Meryl, what was your
I don't
coldest
know.
day?
Depends on if you're camping the wind chill.
I think it was quite a number of years ago. It was New Year's Eve, and I think it was down to like minus 35 or something. But I left a New Year's Eve party at about 2:30 in the morning, and the grease in my hubs had solidified, so like it felt like I was riding like this sticky mess of like bike that wouldn't spin anywhere.
That's great. For me, it was minus 25. That was as cold as I got. Now we're going to do a quick round of your favorite accessory. Pekka.
Well, this was a tricky question because, well, you don't really need anything here. But then again, the favorite accessory could be just the access of the infrastructure and the maintenance we have here. And also I'd like to quickly point out that we are also just regular wimps here. We just have that good infrastructure and good maintenance. We are not any Viking or hardcore people here.
Okay, great. Tom, your favorite accessory?
Yeah, I often say I don't think you need anything special to ride. You just have to like get out there and give it a go, and you'll figure it out. But for where I live, I would say studded tires, and I just use one studded tire on the front of my bike. We have a lot of like freeze melt cycles here, so there's lots of we're prone to ice, and I rode for years without studded tires, just regular mountain bike tires, and then I kind of scoffed at the need for studded tires, but once I added one, I thought, oh, I should have used these years ago. So I do love a studded tire in the wintertime.
Great, great. Patrick, favorite accessory?
Slightly weird answer, but winter bike share, which is now a thing in Montreal. That is, we use bike share a lot for biking the rest of the year, and having that now in the winter this year is going to be quite helpful for continuing to bike and keeping up our numbers.
That's great. Jasmine?
I would say just a very warm pair of mittens. My hands are what tends to get the coldest biking. So yeah, you can't go wrong with a really warm pair of mittens.
Great. Julia?
I mean, I'll echo the studded tires and the good mittens, but my favorite is probably I have a ski helmet, which when I first started winter cycling, there weren't winter bike helmets that you could get very easily. So I ride with a downhill ski helmet and goggles, and that is definitely on the cold days absolutely my favorite thing.
Great. How about you, Meryl?
I think it's my studded tire. I just put one on the front, and that gets me through almost everything.
Awesome. Mine is heated insoles. My feet get super cold. When I first moved here from Brazil, I think I must have gotten some kind of frostbite, and heated insoles just make everything okay. Now, before we move on to the questions from our viewers, I'm just going to do a quick word from my second bike shop sponsor, Plain Bicycle. Do you or someone you love need a bike that feels safe, comfortable, and upright in the snow? A bicycle that's durable and low maintenance? A bike designed to keep you clean and dry no matter what you're wearing? If so, you're going to want to come try the world's most popular winter bike today. And yes, Santa, we have gift certificates. Visit plainbicycle.org. Tom, we know you came by here and visited Anders at Plain Bicycle on my birthday this past March, and that's when I met you. Well, Anders said to say hi to everyone. You probably all know him, so let's all wave to Anders. And we'll be running into Anders, Jasmine, Patrick, Julia, Pekka, and I'm guessing Tom as well at the Winter Cycling Congress, right? And are you coming as well, Meryl?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Meryl, are you coming?
I'd like to try. I'm going to see if I can do it.
Okay, awesome. It's happening on February 22 to 24 in Edmonton. We have 8 people from Bike Winnipeg going so far. I'll put some details on the description here in case you guys feel like joining us in Edmonton and talking about bikes, winter cycling, more bikes, winter infrastructure, and more bikes. We will go now to our first question. Do we have any questions? Let's see here. All right, here we go from Melanie. Melanie, I am wondering about maintenance in the winter. I bring my bike inside my workplace and home, so the freeze melt concerns me. Who would like to take this one? Tom, do you know, can you tell us a little bit
Yeah, I
about
can take that one, sure. Yeah, I struggled with this for a long time, and there's maybe 2 answers, neither of which are easy. One is just clean your bike really well, like clean it often and make sure you get that grime and the grit. It sort of depends on your city and how much salt they use on the roads, but my city uses a lot of salt, and so I destroyed a bike before I realized how often you have to clean it. Or my latest solution is to have a bike that's specifically for winter. I've got one where I've eliminated all of the rustable parts on it. So it's got a carbon belt drive. It's got internal brakes or gearing. I mean, it's got disc brakes, aluminum frame. So I've tried to eliminate anything that might rust or get all gummed up with the winter grit time. And so I've been riding that bike for, I guess, 5 or 6 years now, and it's been pretty great. So, you don't need to do that if you don't have the money. The alternative is just keep it clean. I think that's the real answer.
Great. Awesome. I had a question that came in from Twitter before from Michael. His biggest trip that he would replace is a 15-minute walk to and from daycare on residential streets. And his biggest fear is slipping and falling with the baby on the back. Any tips there? Anybody carry precious cargo in the back that would like to give us a little tip on that? Jasmine?
Do you know what kind of bike he's riding, Patty?
I think that, yes, I do know. Michael rides an e-bike, and it's a cargo e-bike. So it is one that does not, like, there's no tires, no studded tires for this particular model. So maybe chains in the back, a little bit. Pekka, do you have any suggestions for Michael?
Yeah, well, if there are no studded tires available for that tire size or that wheel size, that makes it a bit difficult then. But you could maybe try to find some big knobby tires, for example. Or then, if it's possible, to change the wheels entirely to a size that allows you to have winter tires.
Great, great. Thank you. We will go to our next question. I'll ask our moderator here if we have one more question. From Nikki. Nikki says, it's first year of winter cycling for me. What are we wearing to keep our heads, specifically forehead, with that Winnipeg wind? Julia, do you want to talk a little bit more about your setup?
Yeah. Oh, see, I love my ski helmet. It is so warm. It's got like
We lost Meryl.
the ear flaps because it's designed for winter, and I put a really skinny balaclava underneath, and that covers that little gap between my ski goggles and the top of the helmet. And then if it's really cold, sometimes I'll even put another buff on top of the balaclava.
Great. Yeah, I have a balaclava I wear as well, and I love it. All right, next question. Okay, we have one here that came in from Twitter. Do your tires still occasionally slip on ice with studded tires? Are they good enough for an icy incline? And who knows about inclines here? Do you guys have some hills in Montreal, Jasmine and Patrick? Or it looks like Meryl has a suggestion.
Yes. Yeah. A moment of silence for the Arlington Bridge that I used to ride every day.
Yes.
But yes, so there's sort of a range of studded tires. I ride ones that are a bit on the sparse side, but I found that even going up the Arlington Bridge was just fine with it. At the time, I was riding a studded tire on the back too, but I usually don't have an issue. But I think if you find you're slipping, you could look at tires with a bit more aggressive studs on them. Like some of them have 2 rows. Some of them are just a single row. And sometimes you can get ones that have more studs towards the inside or the outside. So I think you can sort of play around with that. But the nice thing is if you are slipping on the back of your bike, on the back wheel, you tend to be able to catch yourself instead of the front, where you will probably go down a lot faster.
Okay, good. Great. Thank you. Next question. Nicole, anyone have tips on dealing with fogging glasses? Let's get our Montreal friends to chime in on this one. Either of you?
That's a problem with anything, not just biking outside. I've never really done anything about it. I just wait for them to stop fogging up. Yeah.
Great.
I should probably give more thought to that.
Yeah, what I did this past winter
I
was...
guess one thing... Yeah, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I guess one thing that helps is to make sure that you have a lot of room around your face. So I think I had the problem the sustained problem with glasses fogging most of the time when I had like a balaclava over my face and my mouth, and that's when it was really the biggest problem. So yeah, like either pulling it down or finding another face covering for around your mouth. There might be a better face covering than a balaclava for it, but I just ended up pulling it down for the worst times.
Great. I see Pekka doesn't have any issues because he has natural insulation there around his face, and he doesn't need a balaclava to ride in winter, so he doesn't get his glasses all fogged up. Do you ever wear goggles, or do you feel like you don't need to, Pekka? Last
So
time,
actually, yeah. So actually, maybe you can see it, but I am wearing a thin balaclava now around my ears, just under this beanie or toque or whatever it is called. And I was expecting it to be a bit colder. It's only -16, -17, so I'm actually getting a little bit toasty here now. Anyway, so for example, on today's earlier daytime ride, I didn't wear any goggles because it wasn't snowing. And well, sometimes if there's like lots of wind, so lots of snowfall, I might wear goggles or just like, I don't know what to even call them. Not ski goggles, I don't like them at all. But they help me just to protect my eyes from, let's say, icy snow and so on. But when I visited Montreal back in 2017 for the then Winter Cycling Congress, I really understood why some people over there, for example, do use ski goggles, because it was like -12, but it looked like it's +2 or +3 because everything was covered in salt slush, and the salt spray in the air was just horrible. So that's the only time basically when I really wished I did have ski goggles.
oh, interesting. Yeah, I guess you really get acclimatized as well, right? So you Great. I had this mask bracket that I put, from back in the days, early days of the pandemic, that you have a bracket that you put around to sort of keep your balaclava from getting too close to your mouth. And that really helped because then you didn't have that air that was like going straight into the goggles. But I'm Brazilian, so I really overdress when I go ride my bike when it's cold outside. But another question that we had, and we touched on this a little bit, we had this question come in on Twitter ahead of time, whether to get a good, this is from Michael Zajac, whether to get a good winter bike or a junker and save rusting on the good bike. Who wants to take this one?
I'll take that one too, because I've done both, and I think this is a bit of a answer, but it depends on your city. I found it better to get a winter bike here because I destroyed a beloved summer bike because there's so much salt used on the roads here. But I think if you're in Oulu, where they do a better job maintaining the pathways and the maintenance is better, they don't need to use that much salt. If you're riding on snow instead of like, slushy bits of snert, then yeah, it can be really hard on your bike. So yeah, because of where I live, I use a different winter bike, but it does depend on where you are, I think.
Meryl, quick question for you. I know that working at the Wrench, you have access to some good, access to some used bikes there. You guys have the bike forest with hundreds and hundreds of bikes, and I know that people come to you for their winter junkers, right?
Yes. Yeah, we kind of have a template for the kind of winter bike that we sell a lot of, and that we have sort of found is kind of a bike that fits the needs of most winter cyclists. And we've sort of narrowed it down to an older rigid mountain bike, so like no suspension. And we look for the ability to put on studded tires, and we usually set it up as a single speed or just with gears in the back. And we also try to make sure there's room for fenders to keep you and your bike a bit cleaner and drier. And we find that that kind of is the bike that works for a lot of people, and it can make winter cycling much more approachable than feeling like you have to pay for a fat bike or worrying that your nice summer bike is going to get rusted out from riding all winter.
Yeah, that's true. So if you're in Winnipeg and you want a little starter winter bike, the Wrench is a perfect place to head to if you feel like you don't want to spend a lot of money. But Pekka, you were starting to talk about something too. Can you tell us a little bit about your winter bike?
Yeah, so I was just about to say that if you just have the options, if you have the possibility, if you have the budget, go with anything that's comfortable, that you like to ride. That should be, in my opinion, if you just can, should be the most important thing. So when you like to ride, when you like your bike, when the bike that you have feels comfortable for you, that's when you will also use it.
It's true. It's true. I right now I have one bike that I'm using all the time. I don't have a special bike for winter. I am lucky that I do love it year round, and it's a comfortable bike, and it's an e-bike. That's what I have. But you definitely, I always say to people, the best bike for riding in winter is the bike that you have. So that's kind of what we go here. Someone, sorry, you had an input, Julia?
Oh, I'm going to buck the trend too. I also just ride my same bike all year round. And repeating what Pekka was saying, part of the reason I started riding on that bike is because I felt very confident. I'd ridden it for years. So I just added the studded tires, and I don't even really take care of it in the winter that carefully. I just recognize that I'll need to replace some components in the spring and deal with the rest, but it's an aluminum frame, so generally it works okay.
Great. Another question. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
please.
we have a slightly. This is probably a little out of left field, but how we started out biking in the winter was with folding bikes, because I mentioned earlier the problem of cleaning and maintenance. So we got folding bikes, budget folding bikes that are basically easier to fold up and clean inside, because we don't leave our bikes outside. The tires are smaller, which might theoretically be a problem, but it seems to have, they seem to work fine for our needs. Their tires are a bit wider too, which is probably good in some circumstances. But yeah, folding bikes for easier cleaning and maintenance.
Maybe
That's
good
awesome.
for people who have space constraints in a small apartment or things like that.
Yeah, that's great. You bring it inside and give it a bath, hose it down, and off you go.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. That's perfect. Never thought of that. One more question that came in beforehand from Twitter was from Yosemite Frog. Love these Twitter handles. I would be asking about studying the tires myself. Is it possible enough to do it yourself, or get special winter tires because you're going to mess it up, or just use the same tires year round? Because the real winter hazard is automobiles, or as we like to call them, drivers, just like they are the greatest summer hazard. So I know, Tom, from reading your book, that you have studied your own tires. Anyone else tried to stud their own tires before? No? Tom, tell us a little bit.
Yeah, don't do it. Just go buy some. It's possible, but it's studded tires have come down in price so much these days. For me, it's just not worth it. Not worth the hassle. It didn't last very long. It was a bit of a disaster for me. So I say just go buy some.
Okay, great. Apparently, my moderator is telling me
Tom,
here.
if I may ask.
Go ahead, Pekka.
Yeah, so if I may ask, Tom, was it so the tire that you installed the studs yourself? Was it intended for doing that, or was it just a regular like mountain bike tire or something? Yes, you know that there are some tires that are meant So there's holes already there that you can buy studs and just push them in, which isn't super hard. And especially some more expensive fat bike tires, you can actually get them, if you're lucky at least, you can get them a bit cheaper, or if you want to like make your own custom fat bike tire which has a little less studs, it could be cheaper sometimes, but this is also a pretty narrow case.
Yeah, that's a great point, Pekka. No, this was me taking a mountain bike tire and like driving screws through it from the underside, which is sort of the old DIY hack that you can try. So yeah, those ones that you're mentioning are a better option.
Yeah.
I've also heard of people taking like plastic cable ties and wrapping them around, and sort of the little latching part makes a bit of a stud. So I guess there are some DIY ways of doing it, but you know, whatever works. I think for what I would recommend to people always is like try without and see how it's going, and then you know just sort of add a little bit until it works, and then maybe if you end up buying one at the end, great. But if you can make it work with a DIY solution, then that's even better.
So I have a question for everyone. I have this idea that winter cycling has surprises. It surprises you in some ways of what you get. You go in thinking you're going to do it for one particular reason, and then when you do it, you go, oh, I didn't expect to get this from it. And I'd like to ask you to think about what was the thing that you got out of riding your bike in winter that surprised you. And I'm going to start with Pekka because he seems to have the answer to everything. And that gives everyone else a chance to think about it a little bit. Pekka, I know that you don't call it winter cycling, but talk to us anyway.
Yeah,
show us some of this beautiful infrastructure.
Yeah, so sorry, I was just changing the camera, so I missed your question. Could you please repeat it?
You bet. What was the one thing that surprised, like what we were talking about, how we go into winter cycling for a particular reason here in North America in any case, and that sometimes you get something else out of it that you didn't expect. Do you have anything like that you can share with us?
Like, you mean wonderful, enjoyable experiences while you were cycling in winter that you didn't expect?
Exactly.
Oh, well, there's plenty of those things. Like, for example, sometimes even in the city with all the light pollution, not now, unfortunately, you sometimes catch a glimpse of something green on the sky, for example, and then you go to a bit of a darker place and the lights are getting stronger and suddenly you are just below a magnificent show that the Mother Nature has put up for you, seeing all the northern lights. That's so beautiful sometimes.
That's amazing.
Or
that's great.
Sometimes it is actually quite fun. It's sometimes trying to be a certain number on these counters.
Let's see.
Like you see here, just a second. My cable got stuck there, so there's a lot of these counters. Maybe you can slowly see it now.
Yes, we can.
Because the refresh rate is like 1 frame per second that I can see, so I don't know if it's stuttering so much to you. But these counters that we have, there's 12 of these. Now I was the number 663 today, which is pretty small amount, but it's Sunday and it happens also here that when it's like the first colder day after warmer days, some people get a bit afraid of that or something. But that's also one thing that I like to tell to people, that when it's cold out there, go outside even just for a second, just for a couple of minutes or so. If it's minus 20 now and it feels cold, that's good. That gets you acclimatized, and then minus 15 or minus 10 is going to feel much warmer.
Yes, that is completely true. Awesome. Tom, do you have something that surprised you about winter cycling that you didn't expect?
Yeah, lots of things. I think one is just like it's a great way of getting around the city. Like, I think we sort of make it out to be harder than it is. So on one level, it's just like, it's a very practical way of getting around, just like it is in the summertime. So, but I also say it changed my relationship to winter. I think as Canadians, we like to think we're winter people, but we actually, a lot of us do whatever we can to avoid winter. We complain about it all the time. We go from our heated house to our heated car to our heated office, and we walk through pedways or plus 15s through downtown, avoiding the winter. And so we develop a fear and a hatred of winter. But for me, getting out in the winter and just getting to work through it, it made me realize it's not that bad. Like, it's not as long as I used to think it is. It's not as cold as I thought it was. Dealing with it is not as difficult as I once thought it was. And so I actually really, I've really loved winter now. There's lots of things to love about it. So I don't know if I would have realized that without riding my bike through it.
Awesome. Patrick?
I think the biggest surprise for me was realizing just how much variation there is in winter. So, for example, I distinctly remember the coldest time of the year last year when we were in Montreal. It was, I don't know, like minus 33 with a wind chill of minus 40 something. And it was extremely uncomfortable. And that's what stands out in your mind when you remember winter. Like, that's the biggest memory I have of last winter. But the vast majority of days were not like that at all. And even though we do have those days where it can be difficult to bike or even walk, like walking outside in that winter, in that weather was quite difficult. Like, most of the days are just normal, minus 5, minus 10. We're entirely used to it. It's pleasant. It's a little chilly. It's not too bad. It's the variation that I didn't realize until I started paying attention to the conditions.
Awesome. Great. Jasmine?
Yeah. It was more invigorating than I expected. I think I expected it to be like a challenge and something you could say like, oh, I'm happy that I did that. I'm proud I did that. But I think like when you're riding and like you're actually enjoying yourself and it's cold, and you come home and it's like, you feel like refreshed, invigorated, and it's kind of a good way to embrace the winter more. I'm not really someone who has like a strong, or who didn't have a strong like winter sport that I would do consistently. So it's nice to be able to just continue cycling, to kind of keep some kind of sport throughout the winter too.
Thank you. That's for sure. Julia?
There's a few things. I think a few people have mentioned in the comments already, but the way that winter cycling is so quiet compared to summer cycling. Even the cars are quieter, which is really lovely. I also find that drivers tend to be kinder in the winter because they think we're all bonkers and they give you way more space. So that's nice. And also that it's not actually that hard to dress for it, because I'm honestly more likely to be too warm in the winter than I am too cold. Because once you get moving, it's a decent amount of work in the winter. So it's pretty easy to keep your body temperature up.
Great. Thank you. Meryl?
I think, or I've noticed that it's always faster than the bus. Even on the days where traffic is so backed up, you will usually get home faster than you would if you were taking the bus. And I've also discovered the joy of making myself a nice thermos of hot coffee before I go for a ride or before I commute. So when I get into work or wherever I'm going, I have this hot drink that is usually cooled down to the perfect drinking temperature.
That's great. That's awesome. I gotta start doing that a little bit more, I think. To me, I think the biggest shocker was the way I felt inside me. It was like all of a sudden, if you had any anxiety, it's gone. You have this sense of I can do anything. And I think that's one of the things that I highlighted here in your book, Tom. That's like this feeling you get inside that no matter what happens in life, I can do anything. And I can really relate to that. And that was, to me, the biggest surprise that I had in riding my bike in winter, is learning that I had that inside me at this stage in my life, that I could do anything. We have a comment here. Let's read some of these comments that are coming in. Jason says, the camaraderie of winter cycling was a nice surprise. I love seeing others out on a bike. I have to stop myself from dealing out high fives to every other cyclist I see. And I feel that way too. I even commented on my Instagram that you may see angry drivers when you have that fresh snowfall, but you never see angry cyclists, because we're all like, woohoo, look at you, good job. Any other comments that we can share? No? Do you guys have any questions for each other, since you have this cozy little room that we're meeting in here? Oh, there's Willow.
Can I ask?
Yes, go ahead.
I wonder if Pekka can just tell us a bit about how the pathways, the bike routes are maintained in Oulu, because I think it's very interesting and informative for other cities about winter maintenance on the bike routes there. Pekka, can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, just a sec. One of the rare cases where I had to yield, but they gave me way anyway. So, polite drivers sometimes happen to be around here too. It's really like the eighth miracle of the world. Anyway, so how they are maintained. So we are not using salt at all. Salt is forbidden. Only cases where we can use salt is as a brine liquid. And that's only in the autumn time to prevent the formation of black ice on the asphalt. We are never ever using salt to melt anything that's already there. So we are just mechanically plowing the surface, the excess snow away. And since the plow blades have tiny little teeth, or like really tiny, they create like these really tiny velvet-like smooth ridges that give us a really good surface to ride on. And of course, a couple of millimeters or 1 millimeter of snow gets left on the surface. And thus, the snowy surface can accumulate and create this wonderful thin hardtack snow layer, which is really good to ride on. Sometimes it's better than asphalt, especially bad asphalt. But since we also have a lot of freeze and thaw cycles, for example, we are now already having our second winter this winter, and that's why we need to keep the hardtack snow layer really thin. Sometimes it's just a few millimeters, so that if it starts to soften, if it starts to melt, it must not be too thick, because that's when it's going to be impossible to ride, because it never melts from everywhere at the same time. It's going to be a nightmare to ride. So we need to keep it thin all the time. That's basically it.
And is this part that you're going through right now, Pekka, is that heated underneath? Like the asphalt?
No, it's not actually. No, it's not this one, but we have a couple of underpasses and sections which are heated with leftover heat from our central district heating system in the city. But that one wasn't.
Okay, great. And so you don't have a lot of need for studded tires where you are, because of this very thin layer that kind of makes it comfortable for riding, or do you use studs anyways?
Just a second, I can't hear you right now because of snow transportation.
No worries.
So even here they are transporting snow. So
Wow.
What was the question again?
Do you feel the need to use studded tires on this kind of crunchy snow surface?
Me personally, I don't. And studded tires on this kind of a surface would be just actually quite bad. Well, not horribly bad, but you don't need them for anything. But of course, there can be some cases where we also have ice, but we then take care of the friction other ways, like spreading a tiny amount of mixture of sand and gravel to add friction. And some people do use studded tires here, or one of them in the front. Then it's maybe about 30% of people riding bikes in the winter that feel the need to use a studded tire. And then again, whatever makes you cycle, if you feel more comfortable, if you feel more confident with a studded tire, just go for it.
Great. Does anyone else have any questions for Pekka?
I'm just looking through the comments here, Patty, and there's quite a few people who have some kind of how do I get started question.
Well, and that was
things like how do I
right.
stay warm?
And so that's
one or two studded tires. How do we keep the kids warm?
Okay. So this is
But I'm just wondering if anyone has like their for newbies.
Well, and that's where we're going next. Before we sort of part ways here, I wanted to ask everyone, what is your advice? What would you say to someone who's just starting out? We'll start in reverse order now. We're going to start with you, Meryl. Thinking of everyone that's, thinking, what is the first step that I have to do? What advice do you have? I'm going to get started with you.
Get on your bike and try riding.
Okay.
Like just put on the clothes you'd wear to go outside and give it a try. That's how I started, and eventually you will figure out what things you need. Like you might think, oh, my feet are cold, or maybe I want some better gloves, or I need to cover my face, and then just do that. You don't need to make a mountain out of a molehill. You can start small and ride somewhere short, and then go from there.
And that's what I was going to say. So you would say, don't already aim for that long commute. Just go around your block and see how you feel.
Yes, yeah.
Great.
Go to the coffee shop and get a hot chocolate.
Great. That's a good idea. Julia?
I agree with Meryl that if you just keep riding as it slowly gets colder and snowier, it's a really much easier transition than trying to start in January. But I will also say if you can afford it, I would go with two studded tires. They have made such a difference. And I know lots of people like only one, but unless you are a very confident rider, I would suggest getting the second.
Great. Awesome. And let's see, Jasmine? What is your advice?
Yeah, I would say if you're reticent, don't necessarily feel like you have to start from right outside of your house and just go no matter what the infrastructure is like. You could go to a place that has bike lanes that are better cleared of snow, or you can try winter cycling on a day where the weather isn't so bad, where it's pretty dry conditions, to just kind of get used to the cold and figure out what it's all about without being in the worst conditions. So I guess just kind of being strategic with how you start.
That's great advice. That's awesome. I never thought of that, but it's a good idea. Patrick?
Yeah, I guess I would just stress not thinking about winter cycling as all or nothing. It's perfectly fine to bike on the days when you find it easier and to take the bus or the subway or whatever else if the weather is especially bad. You'll find out that lots of days are quite easy, and it's not like a moral failing if you find it, too cold one day to bike in the winter. And then beyond that, I guess I would say to plan your route and be aware of, at least in my experience in Montreal, like if you like, some of the routes are much better than others in winter. So if you know if you follow your route, maybe walk down it, walk it, or slowly bike it on a day you don't have to actually arrive at work fast. Like if you can make sure that your route is a route that is usually pretty well plowed and everything, then you can be confident of that route and then slowly expand to other destinations as you get more into winter cycling.
That's great. That's really great. Thank you so much. Tom.
Yeah, this was all great advice. I've got a couple of quick things here. One is we've talked a lot about what we can do as individuals, but I think if we really want to get more people cycling, cities need to build more infrastructure. We need to just become more bike friendly in general. That's going to help more people ride. The barrier right now is not really individual stuff. It's not like having the right clothes or the right bike. It's that there's no safe place to ride. So we want more people to ride in winter, especially newbies. We need to have better, safe infrastructure. So if you're going to put your effort anywhere, it's into advocating your city do a better job. And I'd also say tap into your local community. Like the comment section on this chat is amazing. Like there's so much good advice in here. And in Winnipeg, you've got so many good people at the bike shops and at the community bike shops. And I see, I think that's Jamie Hilland in there, and Anders, all these people we've talked about today and everyone on this call. Like there's lots of great advice. So tap into the local community. They're amazing. I don't know if you guys have a coffee outside like lots of cities do, but that's a great place to start as well. It's also nice to feel like you're not the only one out there.
Thank you so much. I was just going to say, I've been told here that there's some, I can't see the chat, but I've been told there's some great stuff happening in the chat. The community is awesome. And it totally is about the community. And this is why I love Bike Winnipeg and I love being involved. It's really changed my life because I found that there's so much support. And I think that the more people that we get out there on an individual basis, the more we're going to put pressure on our leadership, because we're going to get people calling in and saying, hey, my pass didn't get cleared. What's going on? And it will create this need for better infrastructure, for clearing even those, bike lanes that are just painted on the road. If we start calling in and we have more people riding, then there is that buy-in from the leadership as well. And I know I really want to start one of these coffee outside groups as well. And that's next for us, I think. Very, very thankful for the community that we have, for everyone that's participating on the chat. Do you have any other questions coming in? Oh, Melanie, my butt gets the coldest. If anyone has any advice, go ahead. I have some too, but Julia, you almost look like you have the answer for that one.
Honestly, one of the biggest things I've realized is you've got to keep your core warm. So even things like wearing a vest for an extra layer that doesn't get your whole body too warm can make a difference. I know, Patty, you have a fun accessory for keeping your butt warm, though, so I'll let you go.
I do. I have what I call a peach parka. I got it from one of our sponsors, and it's a skirt, but it's a very thin skirt that has a down filling, and it just covers the hips. I don't know why my hips get really cold too, Melanie, so that's what I use, and it's made a huge difference. I can tell the days that I forget to put it on, and for some reason the hips and the feet are the ones that get the coldest for me. So I think that's it for comments. Anyone have anything else they want to share? Pekka, do you have anything else you want to? Oh, there is. Jason is talking about the Winnipeg Cycling Discord. We have 2 Discord groups that are really active here in our city. I don't know if you guys have that in Calgary or Montreal, but we created a couple of servers where we share with each other when we get to work. Okay, this is what for me was the yellow ribbon greenway. This is what it was like this morning. Avoid it, take a different route, and it's a great little cycling community. So if you have something like that in your city, tap into that. Pekka, any more advice that you can give us?
Yeah, well, I really like what Tom said about putting the pressure on politicians and city officials to actually make the change happen. I really like that. That's one of the most crucial things, most important things that you can do. But also on the individual level, if you're like starting winter cycling, if you're starting cycling, just remember to stay comfortable. Don't try to overachieve. Don't try to ride like every day if it's -40 and there's 3 meters of new snow. Just try like short sections, short rides when you feel like it, and then maybe add a bit every once in a while.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much, everyone. I'd like to thank each of you for signing up for this. It means the world to me that you took the time to log in on a Sunday afternoon and share your expertise. I love that everyone has a different level of winter cycling. You know, Jasmine and Patrick just starting out. I'm just starting out. And then we have Tom, Meryl, Julia, Pekka, who, you know, just have been doing it for a long time. I really appreciate your input. Thank you to Ian McCausland for doing the tech and moderating, and also to Andrew Single, a friend who was really instrumental in me getting started locally as well. He was very helpful, and he's the one who started this Discord group and created this cycling community on Discord with us. Thank you for everyone who logged in and who stopped by the live stream. I hope we can do this again. We're going to put a bunch of links on the description if you guys want to add any links on the chat as well. Thank you, guys. Have a great few weeks before Christmas or holidays. And then we will see you all in Edmonton. Right?
Sounds good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, Pekka. Thank you so much.
And
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.